Welcome to Pitchslap.
My name is John Selig. I am the founder and creator of Comedy Writing for Revenue Teams, which delivers sales enablement and memorable messaging through the process of crafting jokes. And ironically, that wasn't one.
All right, buddy. It landed. It landed.
Good enough.
Everybody, recording date Tuesday, August 1st. Anything that's said here is just personal opinions. It does not reflect the employer's past, present, nor future. If we can get rehired at any point. And yeah, what's up, John? How are you doing?
I'm good. It's just another day here in the comedy club from the 80s in which I live.
Perfect. I'll make sure that stills get up on there, or if we get your permission, I'll put the video cut up on our YouTube and Spotify video channels. We just met, what, 8 minutes ago?
I think you're exaggerating. It feels like 27 seconds ago.
Oh, no, longest 10 years of my life, buddy.
What can I say?
We got put together by Evan, right?
Yes.
Many people think he's a funny guy, and we had a fun time. And some people aren't too offended by my humor. And he said, you got to talk to John. You got to talk to John. He's changing how marketing works. He's changing how sales trainings work. He's changing how messaging works. Oh, look at you blush. And I said, cool. Hopefully you're not overselling this guy. And I would say in the 7 minutes pre-record, he didn't. So let's catch everybody else up. Hi, John. Who are you? How'd you get here?
As you said, I got here as a result of Evan Patterson introducing us.
Oh, I meant like in the sales and marketing realm. Like, okay, we got this.
Oh, all right. Okay, so where do we begin? We begin with a couple of business degrees and a floundering lack of direction in life, let's call it. Even despite those two business degrees at a pretty young age, and went through some time in banking and consulting, and it was a bit of a rough time when I was kind of really trying to find my footing in my career. It was a global recession. It was the early 2000s, and I ended up taking a job at a little startup to make cold calls. I can't say which one, but it rhymes with snorkel. And I decided to take this job. It offered some kind of stability, despite the fact that my ego was telling me, you have business degrees, you've worked in consulting, you've worked in banking, you should not be making cold calls. But I decided to go along with it because I felt that there was a clear direction and clear objectives within the role. And it wasn't like we were, doing telemarketing for credit cards. We were selling ERP systems and complex business applications. So kind of selling business transformation. So I sort of was like, okay, this could be interesting. I had done door-to-door sales as a kid. I had done some other kinds of cold calling stuff. I had worked in retail. And I thought that maybe this would be a good use of my abilities. And I stayed in the Oracle world for about 9 years between my time with Oracle and an Oracle partner. I moved up to the equivalent of an AE role. And before I moved over to a partner where I did really full cycle sales. So everything from cold calling and sourcing opportunities to nurturing them over the phone, trying to close them where I can from the inside, and packing up a bag, putting on a suit, and going to visit customers face to face. But then after about 9 years of that, I hit a bit of a wall, and I decided that I wanted my brain to be challenged in some different ways. And I ended up taking a stand-up comedy class and getting very addicted to stand-up comedy, to the process itself.
Okay.
And I kind of pursued that. The pandemic kind of makes things a little fuzzy, but I was on doing stand-up comedy for about 8 years when the pandemic hit. And over the pandemic, did a lot of virtual stuff. And I was on stage 3 to 5 times a week at my peak. So for about 6 years, I'd be on stage in bars, coffee shops, clubs, you name it, outdoor venues, working on this ridiculous craft called stand-up comedy, trying to figure out how can I get audiences to accept what I'm putting forth into the world and laugh.
So this was a full career pivot. This wasn't an obsessed hobby that took up all the spare moments. You were
yes and no. You actually, I like the latter description far more. It's far more accurate. I never set out to be a professional comedian, But the same way some people say, I'm going to run a 10K or get into CrossFit or do a triathlon, I just said, I want to get on stage and be funny and make it look kind of easy.
Perfect. Perfect. And the big part was on the audience engagement and the structure, not on being a celebrity, is what I was picking up on there. You like the structure of comedy. Can you stretch that out a little bit?
I don't know about structure, it's process.
Okay, sorry. There we go.
Yeah, and let's bring it all back to B2B salespeople. Let's just dive right in. The very first time I got on stage, I realized I have to make this audience who has never seen my face or has any idea of who I am. I need to get them to react within a really short window, and it reminded me very much of cold calling. When you make a cold call to someone or you send out a cold email, people's attention spans are really short. And if we can't figure out how to get them to react really quickly to that first idea that we put out there, they're probably their attention spans are going to fade away. And I watched a lot of bad comedians just get up there and ramble, tell a story with no punchline that no one cares about. And people's faces eventually do light up, but not because they're having a great time. It's because they're on their phones. And we can see that bright blue light on their faces from the stage. And I realized really quickly, I don't want to be one of those people who drives people to their phones. And there's a craft to working on jokes, short bits, excuse me, and offering something of relevance to an audience that earns their attention because they're like, oh, he's talking about me. He's talking about something in my life or something I've experienced or something that frustrates me or something that I'm afraid of, or something that I just hate or makes me or keeps me up, makes me very, well, I said afraid of, scared or nervous, whatever. He's relating to me and I'm going to listen. And a comedian's job at some point is to figure out how can we subvert their expectations or really get to the core of the truth or both and get that emotional reaction from them, i.e. a laugh. And in sales and marketing, it's the same thing. We want our prospects to feel something about something that they're really experiencing so that we can get that reaction from them.
So in comedy, I get it. I get how you're up on stage because it's usually telling a story that people can enjoy hearing or picture themselves in, or being a character. Paul Rubens passed away yesterday. R.I.P. Paul Rubens. But in sales, we don't want to make it about ourselves. We don't want to tell some story about how we met our wife and how it was just a debacle. Like, how does this translate? This becoming interesting, becoming captivating through humor and having an audience into this one-on-one with a stranger. How do you do that?
So I don't think or believe comedy has to be about you.
Okay.
And even if you're the central character in a story, and I'm not a storytelling comic, I'm more of an observational comic who brings up stuff I've seen and tells people, give people my perspective and thoughts about it. And I'll come back to what those thoughts usually are. But even if someone's telling a story, it can't be just about their day and their experience. The audience has to see themselves in all that. And, we do know storytelling is a powerful mechanism in sales and marketing. But let's get to the core things. People want to hear about the things that, again, sort of trigger their emotions. They want to hear about those things that drive them nuts in their day-to-day lives, things that frustrate them, that they hate, that they're afraid of, that they're just anxious or nervous about. Sometimes they want to hear about things they love. But people want to see if they've experienced something, they want to hear the comedian's take on it to see if that's what resonates with them as well. Sometimes people like to be validated by comedians. So I have 3 expressions I like to lean on. 2 are conventional ones. And a third explains how humor works or can work in B2B, both sales and marketing. So the first one is, in comedy, we like to say that comedy equals tragedy plus time. So, 9/11, the day after it happened, everyone's so raw. This is a horrible catastrophe. And I think within a year, some comedians start making jokes about 9/11, and everyone was like, that's too soon. Too soon. The wound is really raw. You can't joke about that. 22 years later, I'm pretty sure if you go to any comedy show, pro or open mic, most nights there will be a 9/11 reference. And everyone laughs because it's in the past. No one's diminishing what happened that day, but time softens. I've heard so many World War II related references and jokes, and people laugh. It's not as taboo after some time passes. So that's number one. Comedy equals tragedy plus time. We look back and we can laugh at things. The second one is the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, making no adjustments whatsoever and expecting different results. So we look at, that we look at what companies do and the way they behave and the way they act and the way they handle processes and procedures. When I was cold calling, I would lead with a pain point that I could solve for my customers when I was working in the Oracle world. And if you got the right person on the phone and you highlighted the right business process to them, you could really trigger them and they would start babbling about how they've been telling the boss for 4 years that they need to change that. And this is how we're doing it today. And it's crazy. And head office, they bought some other tool and they tried to implement it here. And we do different things differently in this division. They're just talking. I've triggered them. I've touched on this thing that drives them nuts every single day, which they've been yelling and screaming from the top of their lungs that they need to get this fixed, and they don't know how to get it done, but they want some help. So we have comedy equals tragedy plus time, and we have the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over, making no adjustments, and expecting different results. I like to say that in B2B, comedy equals tragedy that repeats itself. So those day-to-day challenges that are just driving everyone crazy, that leadership doesn't see it as a priority to take action on, but which is impacting productivity and morale and business outcomes, that is where, as sellers and marketers, we can find humor that triggers our prospects, that tells stories, that paints pictures, and that says, we understand you and we know what you're dealing with. And if you want to talk about how we can help you solve that problem, we're here for you.
There we go. And it's the ERP world. So you get on the phone with somebody, you're like, EDI, am I right? I mean, come on. Or you're addressing this pain point, but then that person's able to unload with you, and you have this shared observational perspective about this difficulty, this tragedy. But then, like you said, the executive doesn't necessarily care. The business decision maker doesn't necessarily care. They don't identify the tragedy. It's a regional humor for that particular employee, not for the executive. I have a case in my own life where we had a witty salesperson come through, and the CEO, I'm in the room, CEO says, okay, marketing wants another tool. And he looks dead at me and he goes, but frankly, we have enough tools in marketing. And that was a combination of almost being arrested, almost being fired, almost quitting. And it's just not, it's interesting. Like, how do you maintain the conversation? Who is truly the audience? Are you using humor as a mechanism for relating to someone, or are you using humor as a mechanism to help people understand their own feelings and articulate them to the audience that they need to articulate them to get buy-in?
So I mentioned in my opening line that I do enablement and messaging through the process of writing jokes. And look, I like to say that the right bit of humor, and just to be clear, a joke does not mean, and maybe I should have said this way earlier, So people might have to start this podcast over after they hear this definition. But a joke does not mean, hey, a rabbi, a priest, and a minister walk into a bar and say offensive things to each other, and it's a long-winded story that your uncle would tell at Thanksgiving. That's not what I mean by a joke. Joke is just short-form humor, 1 or 2 lines, comparing 2 very different things, maybe subverting expectations, a little wordplay, something short, quick, and simple. And you could write jokes to impress any point upon any kind of audience. So in the world of comedy today, comedians will produce shows for comic book fans or pro wrestling fans um, or cultural, that Just for Laughs they had they do it just, it's called Just for Culture. The big Montreal Comedy Festival has Just for Culture. And it's tapping into different ethnic groups and the nuances of their families and the way everyone thinks and stuff like that, traditions. So you can write humor to highlight anything to any particular audience, no matter how niche. Whether it's a director of procurement that you sell to, maybe you sell to a CIO, maybe a vice president of HR is your target persona. These are all little audiences. And to connect with them, we need to understand them and what they're trying to achieve, what their objectives are, what success and failure looks like, how they're measured, what their days look like, what are the things that they're dealing with that prevent them from reaching their objective, their desired end state. And once we can understand that, we're in a better position to be better salespeople. But if every salesperson is doing what they're supposed to do, or every marketer is doing what they're supposed to do, how do we stand out? So at that point, if we can use a little humor to highlight something that absolutely sucks for that audience, or that micro audience, as I like to call it, and we can highlight it through humor and get them to laugh, we're not only getting their attention, but we're going to be deemed as trustworthy and credible, because it's hard to make light of something that you don't understand. It shows that understanding, that subject matter expertise. So let's come back to your question. The joke itself can be used to be, like I said, connecting tissue between buyer and seller and or marketer. But the process of trying to craft it forces you to really master who is my audience and what's my relevance to them. What's my so what, who cares? And that who cares is understanding those pain points we eliminate. And again, how the buyer is impacted by those pain points.
Okay, so you used the word marketer there. I'm really, now I'm curious, because when we were originally talking, we're talking about enablement, we're talking about the sales process, we're talking about sellers, we're talking about the one-on-one element, the one on a committee element. When you're doing marketing, it's a blast. No, not that it's fun. It's the furthest thing from. But you're just spraying some sort of message out there. You have no ability to read the room. You have no ability to really control who your audience is going to be. You have no ability to prevent offense, aside from having the most banal, boring, succinct tone and language possible. We can't all be Wendy's Twitter account. And how can you deliver something like comedy or cheekiness? There we go. That's a fun word for me to use on this. How do you deliver cheekiness in marketing without coming across as a pud?
Well, it takes a little work, first of all. And it takes the desire to be a little different and say we have to be a little different. Look, there's all kinds of rules. We can't say anything offensive. We can't say anything that talks about sex or uses any kind of words. We can't mention cultural groups in there, ethnic groups. We can't talk about anyone's gender or sexuality. I mean, people think that this is what comedy has to do, is invoke these things, and it doesn't. I mean, the most successful comedians on the planet are clean comedians. I'm not a big fan, but I mean, Jim Gaffigan has made a whole career talking about food. Jerry Seinfeld, it's also food, but he's got a movie coming up about Pop-Tarts. Like, these are the most successful comedians in the world, and they're not talking about anything edgy or offensive. And so B2B has that opportunity to tap into that same kind of craftsmanship, as I like to say, to to use humor in a way that, and I'm going to keep saying this, that paints a powerful picture, that tells a story, and that gets prospects going. That's funny because it's true.
Okay, so then there we go. Now we're going to boomerang back to observational, because you said that you do this observational
Yeah.
format. You mentioned Jerry Seinfeld, and as soon as you said observational, I was like, oh my God, I can hear the, what's up with that tagline in the back of my head. And so there's this marketing could easily benefit by putting a little bit of wit around having the same complaints their customers do and addressing the remediation of that problem. But
Well,
beyond that, what's observational? I guess that's a two-parter. Go for it.
yeah. Well, look, every company sells something. That something is a product or a service or maybe a combination of both. Most, there's the odd thing in the marketplace that's this luxury, and we buy it because it's just maybe a status symbol. But most things we buy are solving a problem. And problems are those, to me, are always the premises for jokes, because problems cause us to struggle. And what do we want less of in our day? We have enough struggles in life. Why should our job be such a struggle? We're just doing it to pay the bills, or in some people's cases, to get really wealthy. But the less struggles we have, whatever your perspective is, the less struggles we have, the better. So if we can tell that story of how we can eliminate the struggle from your day to day, or from your month, or from your quarter, or from your year, it's going to make your life easier. Who doesn't want to hear that? And again, if we can make them laugh, we're just tapping into something deep within them, and they're gonna view us as credible, as subject matter expertise, and want to hear more from us. And
Comrades in the war against whatever this observed element is.
yeah, and the beauty of being a B2B marketer or salesperson is you don't have to develop an hour-long Netflix special. You need a line or two to hook people in, get them to like you, and get them to trust you. And again, showcase that credibility, that subject matter expertise. This person knows what they're talking about. It's funny, you said something about, in marketing, we just blast stuff out. This is where marketing is way easier than stand-up comedy. You guys can literally choose who your audience is. We have all the tools in the world to sift through loads of contacts, choose the exact profile we're looking for. We're never going to get 100% right because we don't know these people. We don't have their job descriptions in front of us. But if someone's, a director of, I don't know, sales development, and we want to hit up directors of sales development at software companies between 50 and 200 people, in California, we have all the power to go do that. We have all the tools at our disposal to literally choose our audience, make some, take the time to understand them through research, make some hypotheses about them, and then offer them a message that says, based, sort of without saying this, based on our research, we think you might be struggling with this, and here's something you might find funny about it. Comedians, we walk into clubs, we're just like, whoever's there, we have to make them laugh. Like, we have to be as relevant, as relatable to a broad a swath as possible. And B2B, you just have that time to sit back and figure out who is my audience and what's important to them.
So I'm a huge fan of readiness. So being able to be clever and resourceful and witty. And when we talk about humor in a sales environment, and you just said about choosing your own audience, I'm just like, thank God that the Blues Brothers knew how to play rawhide. And that for me is the moment that comes to mind, is like using it to back out of a problem, using it to save face in an issue, as opposed to like, I know what your problem is. Look how clever I am. I pulled up my LinkedIn and I started going through. I searched for the word abhorrent in my DMs, and that's my response to people that make very presumptive, odd jokes to try and get my attention and point out to me some problem I have, as opposed to this observation of a problem that I have. Like there's this fine line on understanding all this. You might as well pitch yourself. That's the whole purpose of this show. But like, how do we learn to not be jerky? How do we learn how to read the room? How do we learn to pivot and actually be humorous in that whole process? Like, teach me to
So,
play.
so what's funny is Rawhide didn't exactly endear them to the crowd. If memory serves, they still got bottles chucked at them, which that mesh, that netting protected them from. But at the same time, the crowd didn't care what music they were playing. They just looked at them and they said, "You're different than us." The music, the song, and let's face it, Rawhide was a TV show theme, so didn't really show that much understanding about this local culture, about these people they were performing for. So I'm not sure if I remember the question, because because I do get distracted whenever
And I ramble, so don't worry about that.
That's okay.
I'll make it more succinct.
Yeah.
I am often attacked with connection requests and in-mails that are really bad jokes, that are very assumptive about a problem I may have. And I've only once gotten a humorous delivery that got me to respond positively and take a call. And it was a guy that asked me, his name's Ben, "Why do you never barbecue on your roof, Peter?" "Because the stakes are too high." He knew that I was a barbecuer in my profile. He actually took the time to read it and did a personalized joke. That worked. The ones that talk about marketing or product-led growth or entrepreneurship, it's always something really terrible that's very presumptive about me, even more than what my problem may be.
Yeah, but
How do we fix that? What's the trick?
I don't know where I think, look, these sound like sales development types. This whole notion of personalization, I think, is personally, I'm as a comedian quite offended by it, because I don't care that you read my profile and you read something personal about me. Anyone could cyber stalk somebody online. Just show me that, like, you can help me save money or make money. Get to that real quick. I'm not going to be. Wow, Peter, you like barbecue? I read that.
Well, what I'm saying is that joke was so asinine and off to the side and a good icebreaker that was okay.
Yeah, no, I get it, but at the same time, that guy is still at ground zero with you. You open the door. Now he has a chance to really earn his way to come into your house to give you the vacuum cleaner demo, right?
Right.
Whereas the type of humor that I want sellers and marketers to use will get people opening their door and inviting them in. Like, you nailed it. Let's go.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, sure.
Who are you going to pitch? Give me what your audience is, and then let's work on an example.
Yeah. So I have a client. They're called TrustArc, and they're a SaaS that helps marketing departments manage their ever-changing global privacy compliance efforts. So all the legislation across every jurisdiction on the planet relating to cookies, right? It's changing all the time. Every country is updating their privacy laws. And a lot of privacy and marketing officers manage those laws in spreadsheets. So they have a document that says, state of Colorado, privacy laws are A, B, and C. But we all, province of Ontario in Canada, same thing. Zimbabwe, the privacy laws are, because you can get fined, or it can damage your brand if you're out of compliance with these laws. And another challenge that everybody shopping for technology has is their CEO doesn't understand technology and the value, and they certainly don't always understand the importance of the seemingly smaller issue that they might be working on. Like privacy. Is a CEO thinking about privacy compliance? Probably not. They have bigger things to worry about. So the joke I wrote for these guys, so CEOs, they're not aware of the ever-changing laws, and they're often not aware of what technology can or can't do for their business. So the joke I wrote for these guys is CEOs remind me of my parents. The only thing they understand less than technology is privacy. It's 2 sentences.
Yeah, you got a chortle out of me.
That's all I'm looking for, and it's not even written for you. I mean, there's a reason why I gave all this exposition to explain the joke, and they say it's not funny if you have to explain it, but for the kinds of jokes that come out of my trainings, workshops, and consulting, they need to be explained unless you're part of that world. So it's like if I told you a joke about some Marvel movie character, you hadn't seen the movie, you're not going to get the joke. But some nerd who goes to all those movies, they're going to be in. Maybe I've called you a nerd, and
I'm sure you offended somebody somewhere.
I'm okay with it. Those movies need to go away.
Yeah, I was going to say the nerds of us are actually the ones that argue with the movies and say that's not canon.
Right.
We go in costume like you're referencing nerds of old. Those are just hobbyists and enthusiasts.
I like Star Wars. I can say that.
Abouts. Oh, talk about a franchise that didn't start off great to begin with, but has been ruined over time. It's Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a Trekkie. Sorry, we'll have.
All right. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole here.
Rabbit hole.
Let's come back to that joke that you laughed at.
Yeah. Why did I laugh? Why did you write it?
I wrote it for a client because they paid me money.
I get that, but topically, why were you going? What was the value in the CEO? Is it always leaning into the problem is up? Because we were talking when you were talking about the ERPs and addressing the problem, and then it was a buying issue, and that the executive team doesn't feel that same pain, or they don't even understand that the pain exists. Like, is that a bigger part of the comedy, is being on tier with your audience and then also speaking up as opposed to a cultural thing?
That was quite a question.
Sorry, that's why we're
That's
here.
all right. I've only had 1 cup of coffee. It's only almost 11 a.m.
48 ounces.
Look at that. I've concluded coffee does nothing for us. It's just a psychological addiction. It's just a psychological addiction of sorts, like it's placebo.
It's the dopamine chase.
What's that?
The dopamine chase.
Yep, totally. Again, sorry, the question has escaped me. Can you?
Yeah, no worries. So the phrasing is the comedy that we've discussed so far, and the relating with somebody through the use of comedy or wit has always been. I'm sorry. The way that we've referenced it has been mocking up. Mocking is just the word I use. It's not the word that I want. As opposed to mocking out, being like observing the problem itself and having comedy towards the problem itself is on the marketer side, and on the sales side it's healthier and easier if you're saying, dude, I'm with you. I totally understand how much of a pain in the butt is going up on this thing, and that's the core element of it. Am I wrong, or is that one of many thematics that could be used, and it's just what we're hung up on?
It's the main one.
Okay.
I would say that. I mean, look, salespeople, most sales pros or marketers, they're selling stuff, so to speak. They've never used to people whose jobs they've never had in industries they've never worked. That's something I love to say. And every time we get approached by a salesperson, we're like, what do they know about what I do? And a joke just is this ability to, again, if you set the joke up properly and offer some relevance and showcase your deep cut understanding of their world within the first 10 words of a sentence, and then could say a truth, or again subvert their expectations around that truth, they're going to read on. Or if it's a cold email, they're going to read on. If it's a cold call, they're going to talk to you. If it's an ad, they're going to, and there's a joke in big letters, like an online ad, they're going to read what's below, because you got me. What is this all about? I mean, that's the way our brains work. So that's really where I feel jokes themselves can be pretty powerful for marketers and sellers. Like I said, there's 15 to 20 ways that I know of. And I have a couple of pet peeves because you asked me about my pet peeves.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like, after doing what I do for 6 years, I'm a little bit frustrated how I don't care if you're sales development, marketing, customer success, sales enablement, you're all ultimately on the same goddamn team. You're just being managed differently by different people because you have slightly different responsibilities. But everyone has the same job to figure out how do we get revenue on the books. And I'll be talking to some departmental head about what I do, and they deem it as not good for them, but they don't think about how can this benefit my broader team? How can this benefit marketing? If I'm talking to someone in sales development, I'm like, you guys are you're kind of a similar role. You just use different tools to do what you do. That's all. You have a different process and different tools. You're both trying to earn attention, educate people, and get them to a next step of some kind. Salespeople, you're just a little bit further down that funnel, but you're always dealing with people, and you always need to show them that you understand them. You need to relate with them. You need to connect with them, and you need to get them opening up. I have a client who came to me, and they're like, "We exhibit at trade shows. We have we spend money on a booth. We spend money on collateral. We spend money on the display, on the swag, um, the giveaway prize, getting a few people there and housing them for a few days. We have no plan to drive traffic to our booth or engage it." And I wrote them a whack of jokes, and they were small SaaS. They were like, including the CRO, they were 6 people, 6 salespeople. And in 2 months, they closed 160K of net new revenue with just 2 sales reps using 2 jokes to greet people.
You gave them personality, is what I'm hearing.
It's a big part of it.
Pretty empty shell.
That's a big part of it. But whether someone's opening up an email or greeting you at a trade show, there's always a person on the other end of things, and we're just showing we get them.
Would you consider this to fall in more of like a brand voice thing, whether it be the company or you personally?
I think that's a choice that an organization has to take for themselves. So I have another client. He's a brand evangelist. The marketing department hired me to help improve a brand evangelist's voice, not just on LinkedIn, but also at conferences, on podcasts, on webinars. So I wrote him a whack of jokes, and he's been able to grow his personal brand on LinkedIn because people want to follow him after he speaks, or presents, and they like his posts on LinkedIn.
I'm having a complete brain fart because I used the term process, and you were telling me what you really liked about comedy when you first started. It began with a C, hard C sound, not construct. But I'm just gonna fall into process. We always talk about sales frameworks and elements that fit into that. And this is clearly an opener and a relationship maintenance style tool to be that memorable person. But some people just aren't clever. Many people just aren't funny. And I get that you write for those folks, but through practice, is there a muscle memory that develops like this brand evangelist? Has this individual been able to riff off the content and build their own repertoire of originals?
No, because that's not what I worked with them to do. I didn't teach them the process on how to do this. They just kind of contracted me, "Can you write us some humor that we could slide in to customer facing interactions?" Um, Look, not most people. I like to say that I don't teach people to be funny. I teach people to be slightly, slightly, slightly funnier than they currently are. And even if that means that they just have one joke that they own and they could deliver to prospect after prospect, it's an old shtick that a sales guy, a door to door sales guy, would meet with a prospect, and they'd have a joke, and people thought that was incredibly clever, but they've told that 1,000 times to every prospect. And it doesn't always get the laugh. But if it's done well and it's true, it's saying something of truth, they're not going to say that was a terrible joke, get out of here. It's just part of the discourse.
Yeah. And I had referenced pre-show, and you had brought it up as the uncle at Thanksgiving. You'll be around somebody that every new social environment, you'll hear his same old tired joke and you'll roll your eyes, but that's the mechanism. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Um, so what you write these things for people. What more are you doing? Like, are you teaching people how to speak better and engage better, to be more succinct? I probably need to practice that a lot more. Um, like, is this a workshopping thing, or is this like, hey John, I need some more material, and then you are a strike breaker for the writers and go turn in some sheets? Like, what do you do, bud?
I do both.
Okay.
So I do consulting where I take the time to understand, oh, what points do you want to press upon what sort of target persona? Take the time to unpack everything about that persona and how those points impact them. I write a whack of jokes. I call that humor as a service. And then I help you figure out how do we want to deploy that humor and exploit it. So where are your prospects? Where are your customers? How do you want to communicate with them and connect with them? Do you want it? Do you want it for trade shows? Hell, I'll even show up and be part of your booth if you don't feel comfortable delivering this kind of stuff. We can build playbooks for cold outreach. We can convert it into short form content for social, whether it's little GIFs, whatever you want to call it, whether it's little animations, whether it's memes. We can use these jokes for all kinds of purposes. The other side of my business is training and workshops, where the objective is for breakout groups from go-to-market teams or really any team to their mission is going to be to write a whack of jokes about selected topics for a selected audience.
Okay.
So again, you're going to want to highlight why this problem sucks for this kind of buyer, this kind of persona. And I put them through a process where I share with them different parts of speech, how to really expand upon a problem. What are the impacts of not solving those problems? How do those impacts affect not just the persona, but who are their key stakeholders? How does it affect them? So through the process, I'm boosting their business acumen, I guess you call it, their subject matter expertise. They're sharing all this knowledge with each other in their breakout groups. I facilitate, but I'm really keen on helping them come to a consensus, because usually what I've learned is everyone's got a bit of a different opinion about what's important to a prospect.
Okay.
And we need to come to a consensus around some truths. And once we have those truths across the board, we're in a good position to go down a path of a creative process to highlight those truths in a way that's memorable.
And relatable is what I can continue to grab from that. It's not the problem; it's creating a relatable, memorable truth.
But the problem is at the core of it all. The problem is baked into what you just said. And to answer the first part of your question is, the end of a workshop, everybody has to get up there and deliver their jokes. So each breakout. That's right. And so here's the presentation and communication skills part. I give everyone some time to practice. Everyone's got to deliver a joke or two. They can read it. I don't mind if they read it, but I want them to have talked it out a couple of times and figure out what's your rhythm. And most fail. Most of these jokes just don't do well. There are some that do well, but I'll always say that just because a joke didn't make this crowd laugh right now, it doesn't mean that joke doesn't have the potential to be whittled down a little bit, practiced, fleshed out, and then figure out how can we exploit this across all those other channels. So just because a joke doesn't get a laugh the first time, it doesn't mean that there's something there. In stand-up, it usually takes me four attempts with 4 different crowds for me to determine, is this funny? Is there something here? And working on it every time after I fail with it.
It sounds like this is beyond a good thing for go-to-market teams to do, these workshops. It sounds like just a really great team building thing and professional development, confidence building across the board. Do you service any style of team from an organization? Let's say that, or is it really sales and marketing?
I mean, to date, it's been sales and marketing, because if you just say I do team building workshops for whoever, I think you're going to get nobody.
And you dilute the true value in what you do.
Kind of. Look, everybody needs to influence. I think if you work with a finance team to write jokes about, why they need to get X included in the budget to sell to the CFO, and they write those jokes, they might have a greater chance of influencing the CFO. Because it's a corny expression, but we're all in sales. Everybody needs to convince people. Everyone needs to influence.
Okay.
In some way, shape, or form. So anybody could go through my workshop, but yeah, I market it to go-to-market professionals, to teams.
I do like that you call it humor as a service, because then you're just delivering ha's to people. So there we go. Oh man, there we go. We got the podcast cover there. I'm hoping we do the video.
Please don't.
All right. Blackmail material. All right.
Yes.
I'm going to skip. There's some other ones, like, have you ever been blindsided? It doesn't sound like in your career you've ever been like really ripped off or had that client that just made you miserable or anything like that. It sounds like you've had a pretty charmed career in sales, marketing, and cruising, other than the finding your path to start off. Am I being too assumptive?
No, I think overall that's fair.
Is it fair for me to ask what you think your best mistake was?
My best mistake was probably there's two best. I would say pursuing stand-up as a intensive hobby, let's call it, was a good mistake, because I wasn't at the typical age where people start to do stand-up. I was sort of at this weird in between age of my mid-30s when I started, and it's usually either newbies are usually in their 20s, their early 20s typically, or they're kind of middle age and like their kids are out of the house and they want to go. I always wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go do that. And I'm like in this weird I'm in this weird age where nobody my age is starting out. So I was totally a fish out of water. But I stuck with it. And was it a mistake? It's time consuming. It's energy consuming. It's draining. It's emotional. It takes a toll on you all kinds of ways if you choose to pursue it with any degree of rigor. Like, there's people who go up on stage once a month. Like, I was like, what's the point of that? You're never going to get anywhere. And when I say get anywhere, I don't mean make a living from this, become professional. But the whole point was, if you go up there and you bomb, but you like your material, or you feel confident that this has legs, all I want to do was work on it and figure out how can I fix it. I filmed all my sets. I'd watch it. It would be painful, but I'd realize, why am I losing them? Oh, because I'm taking too long to get to this one little bit of information they need. Let's cut that out. Take that little bit. It's like editing a video. Put it at the front, and now let's get to that punchline and get up there and test it. I was just too anxious to just sit around and wait for that next time. So I pursued it pretty aggressively. On one hand, it was a mistake. On another hand, it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. Because it, like I said, it takes a lot of time and energy and money to pursue it. But I'm glad I did in the end. So was it a mistake? Yes. Was it a good move? I mean, debatable, but I would say yeah.
No, there we go. There we go. No regrets. No regrets.
None.
We are. Can we get 2 or 3 more minutes, or you need a jet?
Okay. No, we're good.
Perfect. That sounded like you got all the time in the world, but
I never said that. Good to noon.
Yeah, I do. I want to boomerang back to this.
Oh my.
The pet peeve about personalization.
Oh my.
And through our talk, it seems like we've had a lot of people have jobs to be done, or getting away from ICPs and personas. And you're like, no, your persona, like, you get to choose your audience. Your persona is the audience you get to choose. Let's focus on messaging for the persona. Forget the personalization. That's too deep. Am I hearing you correctly on that? Like, the whole purpose of this is to reverse engineer a persona. No?
Yeah, that's really well said. I think if you could make them laugh, that's personal.
Ooh, all right. There's our audiogram.
Mm-hmm.
a little video with captions and everything on there, and I like it because then it was the stoic pause and the mm-hmm. So that'll be perfect. But
Yeah, like if you can show your prospects you understand their world and get a chuckle out of them, like that's like who cares if I know where you went to college? It says nothing. Big deal. I posted that online and you read it. Who cares? How are you making my life better?
but don't we post that stuff online so somebody knows, and don't we want to be recognized? Are we okay? So then the other half of it, as individuals, are we leaning too hard on celebrity social media and putting all of our information out there for the sake of some eyeballs, for some human interaction and contact? Is it better just to kind of more understand somebody's cultural fit, whether it be personal or professional?
I mean, it depends what your objectives are. If your objective is to get famous and monetize your face and whatever else you got going on, then go ahead, keep doing that. But if you're like me and you just want to serve, so to speak, and help people, and show people a new way of doing things that they hadn't considered, then do it my way.
Okay. Okay. Much more important than putting education history that has never correlated to work that has been done in the future. That wasn't a dig at you. That was like we all do that. We have this art degree, but then we're in ERP.
But think about it. Let's say you're a busy executive and I cold call you and I say, Peter, and you go, yes, who's this? Hey, I'm a guy out from the internet and I saw on LinkedIn, we went to the same college, but like 20 years apart. How are you? You'd be like, what would you do? You'd hang up. You'd be like, what is this?
Yeah, but the problem is, shouldn't I self-reflect and go, why the hell did I put that up there? If I'm getting calls about this now and it doesn't matter to me, why did I put it out there?
Well, this is a discussion about maybe I'm going to use this term improperly, sort of the existentialism of the internet. Like, what is the internet all about, right? So that's a whole different discussion. It's there. People put things up. We're sort of expected to on LinkedIn list our education because it's a resume, basically. And you got to put your education on a resume. But I think we're getting away from the broader point is of how can we get to the I understand you and that you have this problem fast. How can we just get there? You know, if I cold call you, I say, hey, I'm with company X. How are you? The person on the other end is like, okay, what is this all about? You're wasting my time. I'm sorry I took this call already. Let's just get to it. So how can we offer them something relevant and memorable within 5 to 10 seconds of them taking the call or opening the email or being greeted at the trade show booth or reading the LinkedIn ad?
Okay. So just because there's a spot to put it doesn't mean you need to fill it in. And when you're trying to engage with somebody, like, be real. Don't be a stalker.
Well, just get to the, as a character in The Simpsons once said, get to the bloody point.
Yeah. And I've got some neurodiversity, and small talk is impossible for me. If you want to talk sports or weather or anything like that, it literally shuts my system down. I can't do it. I hate being in elevators specifically for that. But I'd be fine with somebody going like, bosses, am I right? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'd laugh at that.
Dated HR practices. Am I right? Well, yeah, you're right, because we're dealing with that every goddamn day, and I'm tired of filling out these forms manually. If only someone had
uploaded resume.
Technology.
Yep.
What's that?
See uploaded resume.
Yeah. Look, people like are in these careers. They're trying to get a job done. They're probably not as serious as a lot of people believe. People go, you can't tell jokes to these people. They're very serious. I'm like, no, you're just projecting. You as a sales leader or marketer are the one who's serious. They don't take this stuff as seriously as you think they do. Yeah, they do their jobs, but it's not like they can't like laugh at parts of it or aren't open to hearing humor. And so my other pet peeve is how in technology, there's so much risk that's taken, right? Founders take risks to invest all their time and energy into building something. They take time to pitch to investors. The investors are taking risks. People are taking risks to go work for a startup. But then the moment they're in there, you say, "Hey, do you want to use some humor to, to engage prospects and to try and earn attention?" They're like, "Oh, it's really risky. I don't think we can do that." And I think people just don't understand and aren't always open to hearing what is possible, what can be achieved using humor or jokes. They just think it's going to be something offensive. And so it's just so ironic that there's no risks being taken in B2B marketing. And there's so much opportunity to stand out by taking what I call a non existent risk. Because when humor is done right in B2B, if it doesn't get a laugh, it's just truth. That's all it is.
So it seems like the issue is that humor or jokes are the dirty word. They're the taboo aspect of it. If somebody were to go into we're going to pitch you here in just a minute, but if somebody were to go in their organization and say, "Hey, this John dude, he's got this great thing, and it has to do with humor and jokes," and a boo, no, we're not doing anything with this guy. Like, what's the better conveyance of this than these hot words that scare people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, like for those people, to be honest, I don't. If it's, I try not to deal with those people too much. I'm sort of like, you know what? I'm going to find someone who gets it. I'm just one guy. So if there's a prospect that tells me, "Oh, we can't have humor," I'm not really unless I'm talking to them directly, and they're my direct contact who's interested in hearing from me what I have to offer. I'm really not going to work hard to convince that account to keep talking to me.
You either get
Because
it or you don't.
I do not.
Yep, you either get it
I
or you
walk,
don't. And
I walk
and
away.
do you try? Okay, so you don't like. I guess that's a big part of humor too. In reading the room and understanding your audience is like if you know it's not going to land, don't deliver.
I mean, look, there's the enablement side, and sometimes they tell me our SDRs or our marketers, they really struggle to understand our target persona and what's our relevance to them. I'm like, why don't you put them through a joke writing workshop? They're going to master all that stuff. If at that point they're like, "Oh, I don't think humor's a good approach," I'll walk them through what we do and show them that it maps to everything they're looking to achieve. If they're still not interested, then I just move on. Like, what am I supposed to do? That's sales. We that's sales. That's marketing. If everyone were just buy our stuff, life would be easier.
Possibly, possibly.
There is a chance. Yeah.
It depends on how good your stuff is and how much bring back you got. But
Correct.
okay, so next steps. People want to work with you. Do you take on clients or you take on applications?
Define applications.
Oh, like are you so damn busy that people just have to leave a note at the door and you'll call them back when you can?
Yes, I encourage them to leave notes at the door and I'll call them back when I can. But if they want to check out what I do, johnselig.com, JONSELIG .com. And of course, LinkedIn is a great place to find me as well.
Perfect. And as a JOHN John, I do apologize for constantly writing JOHN instead of JON. Again, that's JONSELIG.com. We'll have all this stuff in the show notes. Next steps for people as well. Beyond getting in contact with you and moving forward with something like this, what are a couple actions we could take now to be better about understanding our persona and engaging with them better and being a little humorous about it?
Oh,
Too big of a question?
it is, yeah, because it just goes back to everything we talked about. Look, if anyone wants to learn how to be funny, it's going to take some work. Or write jokes, it takes work. It took me probably 2 years of stand up to figure out like how to get like these shorter, like quick, subversive jokes into my act. It's sort of like a scene, but some people pick it up right away. It's sort of like a seeing eye puzzle. You know, remember those magic eye puzzles?
Those
on
things are made
TV?
up. They those are not real.
Yes, they are.
Well, no, I mean like they exist, but they don't actually do anything. That's like
Wrong. You're wrong. Believe me, at first I didn't get it. Someone told me what the hell to do. I would stare at it and boom, There was a giant boat. But jokes are like that too. You sort of have to like stare at something long enough, and eventually, like the magic of what it is you want to highlight to an audience pops out at you. It takes some creative thinking and some patience, but eventually you learn that it's a process. Jokes or humor can be pretty formulaic, and you learn how those patterns work.
Okay. So understand your persona first and comedy second, and understand it takes a lot of time to do both.
Definitely takes time, but sometimes lightning strikes, and you could think of something really funny in the moment. Just be prepared to write it down, and then figure out how can I mold this into something short, quick, and funny. Because it sounds like if you have that lightning bolt, the relevance is already there.
Cool. Hey, I appreciate this. Last question, then I'm done. You'd mentioned it before. GIF or GIF? Where are you voting on that one?
I don't go in either direction. I like saying GIF a little bit more. I'm
Thank
not
you.
saying I'm not saying it's correct. I like. There's something about GIF I like a little bit more. GIF. I don't even know. Stop it. You're harassing me.
No, no, oh, no. I'm harassing Evan Patterson. This was actually a fight. This was a hill I was dying on. He sent you here. He mocked me for saying GIF, and now it's 2-1 GIF.
I'm not, but again, I'm taking a neutral position on this. I prefer to say Jif because it sounds like a delicious peanut butter, um, which I never buy. But I don't know. GIF is okay too. You guys duke this out. I want no part of this debate.
No, there we go. All right, but we do want part of John. He's delivering the Haas. I really appreciate you for coming, buddy. You better register that domain name before I do. And yeah, thanks for the pitch slap.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving your audience an idea about how to steal a domain name that could be important to me.
It takes me forever to edit. It'll be 2024. You don't have to worry about it. You'll be at
Good,
Review by
good, good.
then.